Hello, everybody. Hello. Welcome. Come on in the room. Come on in the room. Yes, welcome to Kingdom Builders Credit Repair, the TV show and podcast. We are so excited that you are here to join us live today. Listen, stop right now what you're doing and go and share this with a friend. Send them the YouTube links. Let them know that we are live and getting ready to talk about all things credit and finance. That's right, credit and financial tips with yours truly, Michelle Green, aka KB Michelle Green, where you can find me pretty much anywhere on social media. Listen. If this is your first time watching, first, I want you to go ahead and make sure that you hit that subscribe button and set that notification bell. That bell that says that you're going to be notified every time we go live. So whether we send out a message to you guys or not, listen, you will never miss another episode of what? The Kingdom Builders Credit Repair TV show and podcast. Yes, indeed. We are super excited for our message today. But before we get started, I want to just make sure that you are locked in because these are tips that you can take not just today, but you can take it into your future and you can make it work for you, honey. You can make it work for you, sir. You can make it happen for your family, accruing wealth, being able to establish those things that you've been dreaming about. This is why we have created the Kingdom Builders Credit Repair TV show and podcast. So thank you for joining us again. We are so thankful that you are watching us. Yes, shout out to you. Shout out to you today on this Friday. Yay. All right. So let's get into a little bit about credit. Before we get into our message every single week, we want to make sure that everybody understands what credit is and that you are not confused around what credit is. So when we think about credit, we think about someone who doesn't have enough money to pay for the things that they are in need of or the things that they want. And when you don't have enough money, you better have a good reputation because that reputation is going to allow you to be able to get the things that you need and get the things that you want on credit. So, what does credit actually do for us? Credit allows us to breathe up there with oxygen in the financial aspect, okay? It allows us to be able to go to a financial institution of some sort and to actually borrow the money that we need today and pay it back over a period of time. So it is giving us the ability to be able to receive something instantly, even though we will pay it back over a period of 2 years, 5 years, 15, 20 years, or even 30 or 40 years, depending on what type of debt it is that we are borrowing for the particular item from that financial institution. So we don't want to be confused around what debt is, what credit rather is, and how it is so important for us to have a good credit score. Credit scores do range from 300 to 850. So if we're ever trying to figure out like where is our scorecard on the equation of our credit report, then our scorecard is always going to be through a company called MyFICO. MyFICO is the real credit monitoring service. It is the real company that actually establishes a real credit score so that every time we go and apply with that financial institution, guess what? They're going to run that MyFICO credit score. So not the bank, not Experian, not any other source, but the source itself, MyFICO. That's MYFICO.com is where you need to go. And no, this is not a paid sponsorship for MyFICO, but it can be MyFICO. Okay, give a shout out to Kingdom Builders Credit Repair. Hello, somebody. All right, so we got that out of the way to understand that credit is really important. As it relates to our finances, we need to understand that we start out in the financial arena of building up our finances like utilities, things that we absolutely have to have, like lights and water and food and a place to live and transportation, communication. But then we go into a further deeper sense of finances, which I don't really consider them exactly the same, but they are married to each other, and that is credit. And everybody that is in the world needs some form of credibility. So you need to make sure that you understand that you cannot go out in this world. If you are 18 years of age or older, you're gonna need credit. And especially if you're in the United States of America, let me tell you somebody, if you don't have good credit, then you are really suffering in a way that you might not even understand. So we're going to talk about today, how credit affects what you own. And let's get into this topic if you're ready. Are you ready? Are you ready to transition into the conversation around how credit affects what you own? Well, first of all, before we even begin to get into this conversation about how credit affects what you own, let's just start with the idea that we all should be transitioning our mindsets to be owners. We need to be people who are actually owning something, especially if we are planning for it to have a future. I'm talking about a future, whether you're trying to go to college, you're trying to graduate from college and get a good job at the end, or if you're trying to go to college and you're trying to come out of college and you are going to actually go into your own business, you're still going to need good credit. Okay, even if you take that away, and let's say that you decide that you meet the love of your life and you decide that, hey, I want to go and get married, I want to have a couple of kids. Well, how are things going to be financed? How are you going to actually live in order for you to have that family, in order for you to get married? It's going to cost money. So everything that we do in this earthly realm is going to cost us a pretty penny. Okay, it's going to cost us something that is going to relate to our credit. So we want to understand that in ownership, whether we're owning an education, we're owning a family, we are owning transportation, we're owning a home that we're going to live in, and we are owning anything in our life, even a business, then we got to understand that we have to have a mindset around ownership. So, what does it mean to really be an owner of something? It means that you hold all the responsibilities of making sure that that thing is not just obtained, like you don't just get into it initially, but you have to figure out all the costs that it takes before you even enter into ownership. You have to figure out what are all of the responsibilities around going to school. What are all the responsibilities around getting married? What are all the responsibilities around having children? What are all the responsibilities around having transportation or a home of your own? What are all the responsibilities around being a business owner? So, one of the things that we do at Kingdom Builders Credit Repair is we offer a financial dominion masterclass that helps you to break down all of the details of what you own. So, as you're beginning to think about, especially outside of the box, this is not something that most people are going to share with you in the financial arena. So, when we think about this idea around being an owner, we got to think about all the costs that it takes in order for us to be a owner of anything. To say that I have a spouse, to say that I have children, to say that I have a home, or to say that I have my own vehicle. Anything that you are taking possession of in your particular name. I'm just talking to you, the individual. I'm not talking about your spouse. I'm not talking about your family member, your parents, your siblings, your children. I'm talking about you in particular. For you to understand how serious credit affects ownership, you got to understand how ownership works in the first place. It's not that you get the item and then you do nothing else with it. When you talk about ownership, you're talking about something that you are committing to for a long period of time, and sometimes even for a lifetime. So we don't want to go into ownership with this mindset that it's something we can get real quick and then we're done with it, or that we can get it, but we don't want to maintain it. Okay, so let's just pause for a minute and begin to let that absorb into our mindset. When we think about credit, when we think about ownership, we got to understand that ownership requires responsibility to count all the costs. So, what are the responsibilities around going back to school? What are the responsibilities around going to school in the first place? Are you a teenager or someone in college or someone in high school that's thinking about going to college? Are you an adult already? And maybe you're thinking about changing your career because you're just tired of working that job that you've been on. It doesn't matter what level or stage you are in your life. What does matter, though, is that you understand what ownership requires. It requires that you are going to count all the costs. So what are the all the layout of responsibilities of the things that you need to do in order for you to become an owner? And not just once you become the owner, let's also think about the ability to be able to endure throughout the entirety of what it is that you would like to own. So when we think about ownership, listen, we got to go back to the drawing board and we got to listen and write out all of those thoughts that we have in our head around this big end goal picture. Whatever your big end goal picture is and how it connects to your credit, you got to really make sure that you understand all of the layout of that. You have to understand all of the different things that are required within it and how long it's actually going to take you to get finished. So some of us need to really be honest with ourselves in long-term situations because I don't think that we really understand, especially as it relates to credit, how serious it is for us to commit to a long-term situation, to a long-term item, to a long-term debt, to a long-term piece of ownership in the world of finances and credit. So, if we can start there, if we can just go back to the drawing board to not just look at the things that we want, but look at how much responsibility it's going to take for us to get it and how long is it going to take us to actually completely pay off whatever it is that we would like to own. Or in a relationship, for example, how long are you willing to go through ups and downs? If you're going to school, how long are you willing to commit to staying up late and getting that stuff done when you're studying and you're trying to prepare for that test? How long are you willing to go through the process of home buying? How long are you willing to endure as you go through the process of buying that vehicle that you've been dreaming about? How long is it that you are going to really be able to endure? Do you have the strength to do it? Do you have the courage to do it? Do you have the confidence to do it? And if you don't have that, any of those things, then guess what? It's okay because that's what we are here for. So you need to go over to Kingdom Builders Credit Repair after the show and make sure that you get signed up in our program so we can help walk you through hand in hand to make sure that you achieve your goals exactly how you want to achieve them. Okay? But getting back to ownership, what we got to understand is that we have to have the counting all the costs. We have to understand the timeline of finishing, and then we have to see that finish line in front of us on a regular daily basis. So, if you are buying a house, have you been going through neighborhoods looking at different homes? Have you been frequently asking a realtor or a broker or a lender or anything inquiring about that home ownership? See, when we think about this ownership game, whether it's you getting married and getting the research done of what it takes to get married, I'm not just talking about just going down the aisle. I'm talking about like literally going through therapy and understanding that you are bringing all of your information to the table, especially your finances and your credit to the table, as well as the significant other that you are about to say I do to. And then how does all of these things actually affect your credit? Well, let me tell you, as it relates, let's start with the person that is graduating from college. The person that's graduating from college or deciding that they want to see that long-term goal, maybe you're going back to school to get your associate's, your bachelor's, your master's degree, or your doctorate degree, regardless of your level, what you got to understand is it's not just going to be that you can just put that before you and just focus on just one or two things. You got to look at the whole picture and how that's going to affect your finances. How are you going to be able to sustain yourself and be able to make it to the finish line? Because when we talk about someone that's going to school to get an education, you're not just going to school to get the education, you're going because you want to learn a new skill set, gift, or talent to be increased upon so that you can make more money. But in the meantime that you're making more money, are you actually doing all the things that you need to do to prepare your finances and to prepare your credit? So before you decide to go back to school, how does credit affect what you own? When you own that degree, when you walk down that aisle and you are graduated and you're happy and your family is supporting you and all of those great things, that's lovely. But how did your finances and your credit take a hit for that ownership? So let's think about it. If you did not sit down and prepare, if there was no type of idea of what responsibilities you already incurred versus the things that you were going to incur for your education, then that is where we drop the ball. That is how credit is going to really impact your college degree, because before you get that dream job, before you go into the position of being able to have the things that you really want, from you going back to school, listen, your finances on a day to day basis may be suffering. It may be that you didn't even consider how you were going to live, where you were going to live, if there would be any type of emergencies that would come up that would deter you from finishing school or from completing that test or from taking the test again if you needed to. These are not things that we consider. So, how does credit affect what you own in education with that degree or that license or that certification? It affects your whole livelihood, because if it's not done correctly, if you didn't count the cost, if you didn't consider how long it was going to take you to finish, and if you didn't actually complete the finish line, then what is it really for? What is it really for you to take on ownership of an education when you're not going to do anything with it at the end, or you're going to be so indebted and owe hundreds of thousands of dollars down the road that you're not even aware of how you're going to position yourself to pay it off? So before you get into ownership of an education, I really want you to sit down and think about, wait a minute, am I really positioned properly? And if you're not, again, maybe you need to take the Financial Dominion Masterclass that's coming up in this September, or maybe you need to get into the credit repair program, or if you're already there, maybe you need to take it a little bit more seriously. Okay, now let's talk about after college. We might decide that we want to get married. We might decide that we want to start a family, okay? Because we like to love, right? Everybody wants to give love and we want to receive love. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that, because love is the greatest thing of all. However, when we look at how credit affects what we own in a relationship, in our marriage union, which is an institution, one of the things that we really don't consider how it affects our credit is when it relates to the two parties that are bringing all of their debt together. We don't really think about that in the credit world. When we marry someone, the things that we have on our credit are not going to transfer over to the spouse, but it is definitely going to affect how we live day to day. So when you combine two households, think of it like this. If you were joining a team, and that team had baggage that they were bringing to the table, and then you had baggage that you're bringing to the table. And I hate to call it baggage, but the truth is that's what it is. It's baggage because it's things that we have done in our life pertaining to finances and pertaining to credit that we are bringing together, and we're going to make it one big old happy family pie. Okay, we're going to just mesh it all together, and we're going to try to figure it out all at one time, when in actuality we haven't really considered what it means to be an owner in a marriage unit. When we get married, first we got to understand that yes, the finances aren't necessarily going to be in each other's name unless we decide to apply for something together. But even though we might have our credit items separate that we brought into the equation before the marriage, now into the marriage, we still have to look at whatever is on the table. We cannot assume that we know what the other person has on their credit report. We cannot assume that we understand how they manage their finances. So, have you actually sat down with your spouse ever to say, let's look at your credit report, and here is my credit report? And let's look at all of the things that you have responsibility to pay, and let's look at all the things that I have responsibility to pay. There are so many things that have been in the closet as it relates to a marriage union. So when you own a marriage, when you're in a relationship that is committed and it's long term, you got to look at the details of what is on your credit and how that's going to affect your future in the marriage union. Another thing that we don't understand about a marriage is that when you come together, I see this a lot, that in addition to our credit is our taxes. How are you filing your taxes? Because if you're married, you're supposed to be filing jointly, not filing separately as two separate people and two separate entities. You are now one unit. So, how does that affect your credit? It affects it dramatically, especially in the event that you decide that you want to buy a house together, especially as it relates to you being able to purchase anything in the credit arena. You want to understand that, hey, I better be paying attention to what my spouse got going on in addition to what I have going on. And we got to make sure that we get those taxes done, because without the taxes, the credit is going to be affected whenever you apply for something. When I say that there are hundreds of thousands of people that I have dealt with where they got their credit right, but they hadn't done their taxes, or maybe they filed separately. So the husband has one address and the wife got a different address, and they're trying to come together and say they're going to buy a house together. But how are they going to buy a house together when they're not even together on paper? So how does credit affect your ownership of buying a home or being in a marriage? It affects it dramatically. I want you to understand that this is not like a weak type of situation. It's not like something that you can just throw some stuff up against the wall and it's going to stick. A lot of marriages fail because of credit and finances. And we want to make sure that you understand how to bring you and your spouse together so that you guys can have full ownership, and even take it to another level in the Financial Dominion Masterclass, where we teach you wealth management and show you how to make sure that you're managing your financial portfolios properly. Okay, so listen, don't be hesitating. Get into the game. And let's talk about after you've married and you got a couple of kids, okay, and then you want to teach your kids the same thing that you have learned about finances and about credit. So that's ownership of taking control of setting your children up for a good future. Okay, so the whole cycle just kind of begins to repeat, from being a college student to from being a student in high school, going to college, and then deciding on what you want to own personally, and then coming together in a marriage union, in a relationship, combining that, and then what kind of things do you need in order to live in a relationship or even as an individual? It's the same stuff. We all have to have a place to live. We all have to have some form of transportation. We have to have communication. And should anything break down and need repairing, what is our goal? See, we don't really think about ownership in that sense. So let's talk about the kinds of things that we're going to need. We're going to need to clothe ourselves. We're going to need to have food to eat. We're going to need to have electricity and water. We're going to need to have all of these things taken care of in order for us to live as an individual or in a relationship. And so, how are you actually going to allow those dreams and goals that you've been preparing for as an individual or as a couple? How are you actually going to allow that to cross on over so that you can actually achieve that with ease? So that you're not stressed out, but you got peace. So that you are calm and you're not frantic, with your mind scattered all over the place trying to figure out exactly what you need to do financially. So, how do you do that? You have to, again, think about what is the cost of home ownership. What is the cost of you paying a light bill, a water bill, an internet bill? What is the cost of you paying a cell phone bill every single month? See, what we do at Kingdom Builders Credit Repair is we help you to strategize your particular scenario with how you are going to manage those bills. How are you going to manage the mortgage? And how can you pay off a mortgage in less than 30 to 60 years? See, what we don't realize is that when it comes to credit and finances, when you go into the ownership of a home, you're going into the ownership of a vehicle, you're going into even just basic old finances, you got to have a plan. You got to have a plan, a strategy that's going to allow you to be able to have the kind of ownership that is not going to bring your credit score down, that's not going to bring your income down. You got to have a plan that's going to allow you to escape the emergencies that are going to pop up in your life and have everything financially protected and safe and sound. What do we do here? Is teach you how to do that. That's why it's so important, because if you think about a home and you buy a house and maybe you were only thinking about that monthly payment, maybe you bought a vehicle and you were only thinking about putting gas in that vehicle and getting around every day, but you didn't consider that the car would break down, and you didn't consider that the house are going to have things in it, whether it's the appliances, the furniture, whether it is the house structure itself, that's going to get old and it's going to get worn down. So, how are you going to repair it? How are you going to replace it if it's not repairable? Do you have warranties? Do you have the right types of insurance? These are the kinds of conversations that we have in the Kingdom Builders Credit Repair TV show and podcast, as well as in your actual individual strategy session. So, what do we want to do with you? Is we want you to get into one of our sessions. We want you to get into our program, whether it's the Financial Dominion Masterclass, where you go deep into your finances and we do a whole budget that is going to align your money the right way. Or whether you get into the credit program so that we can look at what's on your credit. How can the two of you or the individual person excel with their credit so that their finances will not be impacted in a negative way for their future? So I want you to stop today and really be honest with yourself. Be for real with yourself. Are you ready to be an owner? Are you ready to be an owner of that education? Are you ready to be an owner of a family? Are you ready to be an owner in a relationship with a spouse? Are you ready to be an owner in the ownership of a vehicle or a home? And everything that it takes in order for you to build a future. And I'll take it even a step further. Are you ready to be an owner of your finances? And when I say owner of your finances, I'm talking about, are you ready to invest? Not just save. Are you ready to prepare for your retirement? Because, see, one day you're going to reach that age, and that age will be where you're ready to stop working, where you're ready to start working the job that you've been working at, that maybe you've just been on for a couple of years now, but who says that you're not going to be there for 20, 30, or 40 years? See, we tend to forget about the day to day work that needs to go into the ability for us to keep our finances and our credit right for down the road. And what usually happens is because we're living day to day and we're kind of oblivious for it. With it, it's like out of sight, out of mind mentality. We don't really think about our future in that manner. But if you are thinking about ownership, I want you to really understand that ownership requires credit. Ownership requires financing properly. And it requires for you to be prepared, not just to go into ownership with the mindset that you are going to get something initially, but the whole process of counting every cost, all the repairs, all of the therapy that you might need to go through in a relationship, all of the therapy and the different things that your children may have to go through in order for them to grow up as a child in your household, all of the things that it's going to require for you to go back to school, all of the things it's going to require for you to own that house, for you to own that vehicle. Listen, what are the responsibilities and how long will it take you to get there? You can get there. I'm not trying to discourage you, but I want you to be real today to make sure that you understand that all of your credit and all of your finances will always affect whatever goal you have in mind. All right, that's all I have for today. If you learned a little something, something, listen, put a comment below. Let us know exactly what you took away from this message. And listen, lock in by subscribing to the Kingdom Builders Credit Repair TV show and podcast so that you never ever miss another episode of what we are bringing to the table. Okay, somebody, thank you for watching. Make sure you're subscribed. And listen, before we go, we do want to give a shout out to CTR Media Network, who streams our message to 3.6 billion viewers all over the world in over 175 countries. Shout out to Dr. Tina J. Ramsey and Curtis Ramsey. We appreciate you so much in every other platform that streams our program every single time, every single week on Fridays from 12 to 12:30. Thank you again for being here, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.